Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Jenkins Arboretum. Just one of the most charming places right here in the 157th. I want to thank Secretary Redding for visiting, Senator Comitta for her outstanding bill, and my colleague Rabb for his companion bill in the House. Look, we are so lucky to have this beautiful green space in our community. The trees provide a much-needed escape from the heat, and the flowers provide habitat for our guest of honors, the pollinators. I've lived in this area most of my life, and we're fortunate to have manicured lawns and landscaping. I say that kind of with a quotation, we're fortunate, because what I've been noticing and wondering about is, where are the bees? Bees, butterflies, and other pollinators are not only essential for many plant species, but they contribute to the production of fruits, vegetables, and other crops that are integral to our fresh food supply. This year, I decided to start a garden in my backyard. Don't worry, my grandparents, they had 3 acres of a garden. But let me tell you my experience. I noticed less bees, so I tried to pollinate my cucumber plants by myself with these big hands. Extra large gloves, okay? Humans are not built for this, but guess who is? Bees and pollinators. Without them, our ecosystem and food source would be in grave danger. Pollinators are helpers, and right now our helpers need help. They need a place to rest, and bees don't hang out on a blade of grass. They don't. Watch them. Homeowners, how can they help? I'm doing a shout out to all my suburban neighbors. Hey, burbs, get rid of some of that grass and plant some pollinators. I know it might look different than grass, but it's super helpful to help the helpers. So Senator Comitta and Rep. Rabb's bill is a step in the right direction to protect these pollinators. And as I said before, twice, maybe 3 times, our helpers need help. I thank you for coming today, and now I would like to introduce you to my friend, Executive Director of Jenkins Arboretum, Tom. I call him Tom Smart, but his name is Tom Smarr.
Thank you so much, and welcome to Jenkins Arboretum and Gardens. This garden is about almost 50 years old. Actually, we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary in 2026, along with the nation's big anniversary, and we're very proud of that. And we're founded as 2 land gifts by women who love nature. And so the gardens have been blossomed from that with all this great community support in those 50 years. Our mission here is to celebrate the wonder of plants and place as a destination for education, conservation, and community connection. And part of that in our strategic plan that we completed in 2023 was to really lean into being a leader in ecological horticulture. And what that means is we're working on gardening with nature, being beneficial to nature. And part of that puzzle of nature and gardening with nature is definitely celebrating and providing selecting out our plants that we put in our plant collections that benefit pollinators, that benefit all those native bees, the birds, the other kinds of insects that are out there, as well as the wonderful honeybees that are domesticated workers in the pollinator industry as well. So it's been a big part of how we focus our plant collections. We are also known for a great naturalistic landscape here. We're about 15 acres of trails. We're open free to anybody who would like to come and visit us here in the mainline area. And I invite you all to stroll through, especially after we have this little press conference. We'll do a short stroll through, but stroll through and discover. We're open 365 days a year, so there's a lot to come and see. I want to thank all of our distinguished guests today, especially Senator Comitta and Secretary Redding and everybody else who's here today for all the hard work, Rabb, for all your hard work that you're doing in Harrisburg to make sure we have this benefit continue to move forward. And I see it as our job, not as Jenkins Arboretum and Gardens, but all public gardens. It's our job to take out the educational messages to everyone. So I look forward to showing you around a little bit later. Thank you so much.
That's fine. Thanks, Tom. I'm Frank Schneider. I'm the Director of Bureau Plant Industry with the Department of Agriculture. Since 1921, Pennsylvania has had a bee law to protect bees from diseases that can cause major economic issues for the apiary industry. Pennsylvania similarly has a Plant Pest Act since 1937 to protect the Commonwealth's plant resources from pests. Both laws have been important to the health of Pennsylvania's plants and pollinators. Since their passing, however, there have been many changes in trade practices, the science of plant and pollinator health, the department's enforcement authority, and the cost of simply doing business. The Plant and Pollinator Protection Act, also known as PPPA, is a combination of the current Plant Protection Act and the bee law. PPA will allow us to continue to provide services which allow for the detection of pests, which lead to the protection of consumers and the promotion of safe trade to all domestic and international markets. Pennsylvania's apiary and plant industry account for $7.6 billion to the state's economy. This is the most significant thing coming from the PPA, and is our ability to better serve our stakeholders. Since 1992, many changes have occurred, such as trade with market expansion. No longer are growers only providing plant material for consumers in Pennsylvania, they have international markets. Those markets require additional pest or disease-free phytosanitary certificates and compliance agreements, requiring additional inspections and understanding of not just Pennsylvania's requirements, but the requirements of any other state or country. For some markets, such as the European Union, it requires a certification program which demonstrates cleanliness, which is above our minimum requirements. These certification programs are voluntary and can open additional markets for other growers, such as fruit trees or greenhouse plants. PPPA benefits pollinators by expanding management authority and protections to more species, such as butterflies and bats, and not just honeybees. There are over 400 registered beekeepers living in Chester County and managing over 3,000 colonies of honeybees, and I think it's 600 beekeepers now. So, Mark corrected me. This is critical because the pollinators that benefit our crops contribute $260 million to Pennsylvania's economy. PDA will be better positioned to meet the needs for promoting safe trade through required inspection and voluntary programs. These programs may change throughout the years due to market, state, federal, or international changes, but by having the flexibility to work with our growers to provide services they need now and moving forward makes Pennsylvania a friendly state for growers and makes it more attractive for businesses looking to expand their growing locations. Because it is voluntary, only those companies which want the service will be charged. The PPPA also updates language that causes confusion in the past on who must have a plant merchant license. The new language better identifies who needs a license and includes language which refers to the use of the internet for sales and advertising of plants and pollinators. Next, I'd like to welcome George Dado from the Chester County Beekeepers to provide more information on apiary and bee industry.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. I left my notes at home. Actually, I had no notes. So, my name is George Dado. I'm the current president of the Chester County Beekeepers Association. We have about 650 members, and most of them are beekeepers. And the members are located in Delaware and Chester County. And we know that most of us here love bees, right? When you talk bees with somebody, people say, we love the bees. Now, if you want to know who loves the bees even more, it's beekeepers. I mean, they are passionate about their hobby, about the industry, about pollinator health, about growing flowers that support bees. And it's a wonderful, wonderful group of people. Now, I don't know how many of you have local honey in your pantry or not, but there's several places where you can buy honey, right? You can buy it at Costco, no offense to Costco, they're great, or Walmart, but you can also buy it from your local beekeeper. And if you've never tried local honey, definitely something that you want to go out and look for, because it is delicious, right? And not only honey, I mean, bees make lots of products. honeybees and all kinds of insects make lots of products that go back into different industries, right? There's pollen, there's propolis, there's venom, there's all kinds of things that our insects are making that we are using ourselves. So it's really important that the Chester County Beekeepers motivates not only our members through education, how to be a responsible beekeeper, how to give back. I always tell our beekeepers, if you're taking honey and you're not planting plants, you're a taker, not a giver. You know, they need to be planting for our pollinators. So our members get tired of me a little bit, but we also do a lot of outreach. The club loves to do education. We show up at Boy Scout meetings, Girl Scout meetings, churches, senior citizen centers, libraries, anywhere we're asked to come. We have a group of people that do outreach, and we're talking about the importance of keeping our pollinators healthy and planting too. They go hand in hand. And lastly, one of the most important things that we do every year as an organization is we give out grants. So over the last 6 years, we've given out over $50,000 in money we've given to Jenkins to plant pollinators. We give to Girl Scouts, we give to churches, we give to schools, just to increase the awareness of how important it is, our pollinators, and how important it is that we keep our pollinators healthy. And whatever is out there that people are involved in doing that, the Chester County Beekeepers Association wants to support. And thank you for having me here today. So with that, I'd like to introduce Representative Chris Rabb, House District 200.
Hey folks, I'm State Representative Chris Rabb from the 200th Legislative District in Philadelphia, so not too far away. I'm really glad to be here in this moment. And I'm not going to talk much about the bill because that will be addressed by other folks, and it has been some already. I want to tell you about what brought me to this moment because I think it's important. And I have to share a dark secret with you, Secretary. For most of my life before I became a public servant, I had a deep fear of bees. So I'm not here as a beeologist like some people, or a plantologist either. I wasn't afraid of plants, though. I was afraid of bees. I didn't like them. I have a healthy respect for bees now. And that's partly because I'm on the Agriculture Committee. And the reason I like bragging about being on the Agriculture Committee as someone who represents Philadelphia is because beyond eating every day, which I'm quite fond of, it's important to understand the interconnected relationship between our food systems, our farmers, our rural communities, and those of us in urban communities. So often they're trying to divide us when it's so much more meaningful to bring us together. Urban, suburban, rural. And one of the things that can bring us together is bees and other pollinators. And that's something I would have never said before I took office because I was ignorant. I didn't know about these things. And one of the other reasons I love being on the Agriculture Committee is there's always an opportunity to learn something meaningful that relates to me, my family, my community, and the Commonwealth. And it's something as small as a bee and their endangerment and their stewardship as it relates to our well-being as human beings on this planet. And so when I get to show up as a legislator and impact public policy that protects those creatures and those plants that can help all of us thrive, irrespective of geography or political ideology or whatever bodies we inhabit, it makes me feel really good to serve in an otherwise very challenging environment in Harrisburg. So I'm really glad to be a part of this moment and to introduce legislation along with my colleague in the Senate because this is moving our state forward for something that just doesn't benefit us, it benefits everyone and everything everywhere. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce my esteemed colleague, former House member of mine, class of 2016, and now fancy Senator Carolyn Comitta.
Fancy. I don't usually get that. Thank you, Chris, Rep. Rabb, Rep. Shusterman, also my dear friend from the House, and all of the speakers here today, and everyone who is here. I am just overwhelmed looking around and seeing how many people are here today on one of the hottest days of the year in the middle of a heat wave. And I was very concerned. My staff knows I'm like, there has to be water and it has to be in the shade. And so speaking of shade, Tom and Jenkins Arboretum selected a beautiful spot. And what is it that they say when you're in the shade? The temperature is like 10 degrees cooler than when you're not in the shade. And that's why Jenkins Arboretum, that's open, as Tom said, to everyone for free, can be, it's like a cooling center, right? I mean, this is a new kind of thing that we need in the era of climate change. But it is an opportunity to be outside and also to be cooler and in the beauty of nature. I want to give a shout out to all of the Jenkins Arboretum board members that are here today on a very hot day. Thank you. And a special shout out to Becky, who I just met, who is a board member and is an advocate and champion for accessibility. And certainly Jenkins Arboretum has accessibility happening. Here we all are. Here's Becky, and she wants this to be able to be extended to every public place with greenery and every other opportunity for all. So Becky, thank you. Thank you for that. And also a big shout out to all the staff members who are here and our Harrisburg comms people. This is hot. They came 2 hours at least to get here. And I really appreciate that you're here. And George Datto, Chester County Beekeepers, thank you for being here and for being the leader in Chester County. And I wanted to mention, and I don't know how often this is done, but there are opportunities to sponsor a hive. And my husband and I have been sponsoring a hive for years. And you pay a certain amount of money because a lot of beekeepers are not making money, they're losing money. It's a labor of love, right? I'm not speaking for you, George, but I'm just saying. And then at the end of the season, we get 2 cases of honey that we can give and share and eat. It's wonderful. So I just put that out there for you to think about. And of course, it's wonderful that we have Secretary Redding with us today. Thank you so much, Russell, for being here, and the whole team from the Department of Ag. So I am an environmental champion, and that is why I am in the state legislature. I came of age first Earth Day in 1970, and that was sort of back in the day when polluted streams and trash and don't be a litter bug was a big thing, right? Those were simpler days. Let's just put it that way. We had a lot to do. We did a lot of cleanup, and it was good. But we have a lot of work today with the climate crisis. Oh. Let me back up just one moment. Can I also say welcome and thank you to the press that are here today? Mary Ann is here. She's everywhere from 6ABC. And Bill Ratu from the Daily Local News. Again, it's a really hot day. I'm sure you could have found something to cover that was indoors. But thank you so much for being here, because this is an important issue to cover. We care about our environment, we care about our ecosystems, our food, our waste, our farms, our creatures, our animals. Everything is interconnected, right? We used to think they were all in little silos, and now we're seeing the impact one thing is having on another. And this is what we're learning, how nature works. All of these agricultural and ecological areas are functioning together. So much of that vital interplay relies on the work of our smallest creatures. I often call them critters. And that's why we're here today, to support pollinators and the Plant and Pollinator Protection Act. As you heard, my friend and colleague Chris Rabb has the House version, and I have the Senate version. We often do that. It's like a race to the finish. We see who gets to the finish line. I hope you win, or I hope I win. Okay? That's how it goes. One of us wins, we all win. In recent years, as we know, our understanding of pollinators has grown, and so has our appreciation of their vast contributions. The legislature that we're talking about today updates our laws with better and stronger protections for bees and for all pollinators. Update is very important today. In all of our laws, the world is changing rapidly. What worked 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago is not going to work today. And so this is a very important update. In addition to this bill, there are other steps that we're taking to support pollinators. We are working with PennDOT to plant a roadside pollinator habitat, a pilot pollinator habitat along routes 202 and 100 in West Goshen. Pennsylvania now has a pollinator conservation license plate. It's on my car out in the parking lot at the Arboretum here. Sales of the plates go to support planting pollinator gardens across the highways of Pennsylvania. So that's the pilot garden that we're going to start with, and then we're going to go from there. So thank you all so much for being here today, supporting bees, birds, bats, butterflies, moths, very important pollinator people forget about, beetles and other pollinators. Our pollinators have a mighty impact in keeping our families healthy, our farms strong, and as you can see, our local gardens flourishing, and we want to keep it that way in this changing world. So now it is my great pleasure to introduce my friend and the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, Russell Redding.
Thank you. Senator, thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here, to be at this beautiful garden, and I get the pleasure of traveling the state of Pennsylvania a lot, right? And I'm always sort of humbled and amazed about what's around us that we rarely stop to see, right? And just get a chance to enjoy this moment. So I've known about the Jenkins Arboretum for a long time, but it took this event to bring us here. So Tom, thank you for the invitation, and Senator Comitta for hosting. Very much appreciate the invitation to be here. To each of you, thank you for being here. To the members of this board that provide leadership to the Arboretum, thank you. I appreciate the time that's spent in voluntary roles and helping to lead and guide, particularly this time where you can do a lot of things with your time, but you're here. So thank you for being part of this effort here. And certainly I want to say thank you always to our beekeepers. And turn around, and if you haven't seen the shirt, right, the Beekeeper.
We can sell you one if you join the club.
Right, we'll have to do that. But to the beekeepers across Pennsylvania and here in Chester County particularly, very much appreciate what they do, right? We are the beneficiaries of their work. Again, many unsung heroes of folks who just tend to the hives and do the good work, but they're an amazing group of people, and I get a chance always to see them across Pennsylvania engaged. And there's one sort of common characteristic: they're always teaching. Right, and I admire that. We have them at the Pennsylvania Farm Show, and we very intentionally place them where we place them at the entrance to the farm show, because there is one group of people that you can always count on engaging the public, and it's the beekeepers of Pennsylvania. And it is the most important sort of moment in the farm show event, to see the beekeepers engaged, and the public engaged, and kids engaged in all that. So thank you all for what you do. This is a discussion that has been sort of in motion probably 10 years. Right? Why do I say 10 years? I mean, Frank will remember when we had the colony collapse disorder, and a lot of sort of national, international concerns, and it sort of put on the screen for most of the public and the awareness of the importance of bees, right, and pollinators. And then we got into the work of figuring out the colony collapse disorder. And then COVID hits, right? And then things happen. But we have been talking about updating these two really foundational laws for a long time. As Frank has shared, I mean, they date back to 1921 and 1937, respectively, really important foundational pieces. And I'm sort of comforted by that 100 years ago or so, folks in our legislature at the time said, yeah, these things are important. Plants are important. Bees are important, as the bee law was termed then. To now have a few revisions, but the truth is, as Senator Comitta noted, is that the world has changed. It has changed in its complexity of the habitat. It's changed in complexity of the environment and climate and the influences of society. It has changed in terms of international expectations for trade and what happens with our pollinators, but more importantly in the trade aspect is plants, right? And what happens, we spend a lot of time in the Department of Agriculture making sure that the stock that leaves Pennsylvania is healthy, right? I wish we could say that was the standard around the world. We end up with a lot of things that come into Pennsylvania that take a lot of our time to figure out where did it come from, what is this disease, and where did it go. So just to give you a little framing, that the bee law has now become the pollinator law, right? That's one of the changes of time. As noted here, there are many, many things that are pollinators, and we found that out I guess the hard way through the colony collapse. All of a sudden, we looked around and realized that the moths and the birds and all of those insects are also equally qualified to pollinate. Really important. And then the plant components are, as noted here, the plants of diversity, but it's also the trade and activity, and importantly, the disease and the threats to plants that are ever present and continuing to impact both the plant health, but also the economics and trade of both Pennsylvania and the country. So we decided to put them together. They're symbiotic, right? You can't talk about plants without the pollinators, and you can't talk about pollinators without the plants. So instead of two separate laws, we put them together. And a lot of rewrite, a lot of changes to reflect what I've shared here. Importantly, to make sure that we are looking comprehensively at pollinators. And I want to say thank you to Penn State and Dr. Grossinger and our friends with the Center for Pollinator Research to look at the pollinator protection plan. How do you protect them? Is a piece of what Penn State is doing for Pennsylvania, but also what is important inside of our legislative work as well, and you'll see that in the bill. And of course, in the plants, it's really been a challenge for us to keep up with the plant inspections and believe strongly that we need to prioritize a little bit differently, looking at where risk is in that system of trade and both domestically and internationally. So looking at where we put our efforts with a risk determination, that is one of the significant pieces. But as you can appreciate, just 30 years on since most of the changes have occurred, it's time to update it. And we are really proud to be in a moment today, to be here in the Arboretum, to be with colleagues who believe deeply in both the agriculture and the environment, in that intersection between those two spaces is sort of where this is, right? And we're really pleased to have, you may be afraid of bees, but we like you. I just want to say thank you to Representative Rabb on companion piece in the House, Senator Comitta, in the Senate who's talked to us several times across time on this bill and to be the prime sponsor in the Senate, and Representative Shusterman, who's always appreciative and supportive of those issues around food and the environment as well. So thank you for your support. I could say a lot about the Plant Pollinator Protection Act, but no surprise to each of you that the most important piece of this is now your advocacy, right? We need you to speak, right? We need you to speak, to say pollinator is important, update to the law is important, cooperation between House and Senate is important, because ultimately these are great ideas embedded in a draft unless we can get it done. And I'm hopeful that in this season, when everybody's talking about investments as part of our state budget, that this is one of those really critical investments. It's an investment in our environment. It's an investment in our larger community. It's an investment in our food system, and quite frankly, the quality of life. So we need you to advocate and encourage members of the House and Senate to support it. I was with the governor earlier today and fully supportive of this piece of legislation and anxious to sort of keep it moving as well. So we view this as one of those investments, and to say that there are others that are part of this budget process, and it's certainly related here to this Plant and Pollinator Protection Act, in that the investments we make in innovation. I mean, what we do in terms of my neighbors in Adams County and what they do in their orchards to look at pollination, right? To look at what they do in terms of blossom counts that ultimately become what you and I will buy at the market, farm market, or the grocery store is done by a drone, right? That innovation is important. The diagnostic work that plant industry and animal health is doing at the farm level and Arboretum level is a technology piece. So technology is part of the governor's proposed budget as well. So we need to keep advocating for those investments, both in the budget and certainly in the Plant and Pollinator Protection Act. And I just want to thank again the stakeholders who brought us here, and to say to particularly the beekeepers who have been at the table, very constructive. As you enter into every discussion about a piece of legislation, there are always sort of pros, cons, trade-offs. But at the end of the day, the beekeepers on board, the plant industry across Pennsylvania is on board. So to the stakeholders who have taken that long view and that journey across time, thank you. Helping us get to this point. And again, to those who are prime sponsors, very much appreciate the work that's being done and will continue to be done as well. So as part of the recognition of the week, this is National Pollinator Week. Governor Shapiro also declared Pennsylvania, this week in Pennsylvania, Pollinator Week, and I want to present this proclamation. Most who have been around proclamations know there are 6 or 7 whereases, right? There's one really important therefore, right? And so I draw your attention to the therefore in his signature and declaring for all of the reasons stated today. The importance of pollinators to Pennsylvania, to both this food system, our society, and et cetera, that we are grateful. And we want to recognize the importance of the pollinator and those who help this week by making this declaration on this day by Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania Pollinator Week. So let me present this to Tom and team and say thank you for what you do. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for everyone and all your comments. We welcome you to stroll with us a little bit around the pond. We will be giving rides back up to the parking lot. It is easy sometimes to come down, but not as easy to go up. So we are a beautiful hillside garden, and we got some great views around, so please check those out. We actually look north over Valley Forge Park, so great view shed there as well. So thank you again for being here today, and look forward to seeing you back to visit us here at Jenkins.
Okay. Nice job.